I am very excited to introduce and welcome our panel today. A great group, amazing customer success professionals, but also a lot of great friends of ours. And we're honored to have them to have some fun today. So we've got Jay Nathan, Chief Customer Officer at HigherLogic, Jeff Brunsback, who's Director of Customer Experience at HigherLogic. Everybody knows Christy Feltruso, our VP of Customer Success at ClientSuccess. We've got Andrew Marks, COO and co-founder of SuccessHacker, and Todd Eby, CEO and founder of SuccessHacker. How's everybody doing today?
Awesome.
Fantastic.
All right.
Couldn't be better.
What's up with the flannel shirts? Is that festive? I'm just SuccessHacker. Where are we?
It's as festive as I'm able to get this year. I did adorn IR, as you can see, with a Santa hat.
There we go.
It wasn't planned, Dave, so
it was not planned.
It just happens.
That's all right. So we've got folks on here from Minneapolis, St. Augustine, Florida, Dallas, Glasgow, Scotland, San Diego, Bozeman. Where's everybody coming? Christy, where are you
Long
coming?
Island, New York. Not really a lot of exciting stuff over here, but it is chilly.
All right. Jay and Jeff.
We're in Charleston today, Charleston, South Carolina.
And it's cold and rainy. It is not. Yeah, this feels more like New York weather. So thanks, Christy.
You're welcome. I sent that to you. That's my holiday gift for you all.
No sun there today?
Nope.
Okay. Andrew, are you by the lake?
I am. I'm in Granite Bay, so we're just about 5 minutes from Folsom Lake, but we're also at the base of the Sierra Nevada. So it is a balmy 39 degrees this morning.
Wow.
And overcast.
That's nothing to complain about based on some of the locations I'm seeing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Winnipeg, Canada. That's probably cold.
Canada's going to win.
Canada, yeah.
It's probably
Scotland might give it a run for its money.
Exactly. Boston, it might be a little cold with where Dave is. Todd, where are you coming in from?
Oaktown.
In
the scenic, sunny hills of Oakland, California.
There we go. That's great. All right. Well, today we're gonna look back at 2021. We're gonna talk about all the good stuff, this trends, exciting things. We're gonna look back at some of the predictions that people made a year ago for 2021 and see if they came true. We'll also look forward to 2022 and share some thoughts there. And again, for the audience, we want you to participate. So drop your questions in the Q&A and be ready, because at the end of the webinar, we're going to have open mic. We'll unmute you and let you ask any question for this group. Whether it's look back, look forward, whatever. We'll take whatever questions you have. So let's get it going. Maybe we'll have Christy. Do you want to get the conversation? Maybe ask the first question to the group.
All right. I'm gonna make them pointed. I'm gonna actually call on people and ask questions. So Jay,
do we have to raise our hand?
No. I want it to be chaotic, right? Like no. I want to talk over each other.
Then you've got the right.
You got the right crew.
You definitely.
And I knew what I was orchestrating here. I knew this was gonna be fantastic. So Jay, thinking back to a year ago, what was the prediction that you had coming into this year for customer success? And have you seen that prediction come true?
Oh my gosh. I don't really remember what I ate for breakfast, Christy. Hey
Jay, I'm just looking up where your
predictions
predictions were on the blog for last year. Because as you know, every year we do the predictions.
What did I say?
I'm just looking.
Okay. Well, no, look, I think
Now I'm gonna call you out for being off the magic 8 ball.
I think, I have believed for a while in sort of this power of customer marketing and customer community being part of the conversation and a growing part of how we do scaled customer success. And at least in our world, which is a little slice of the customer success world and SaaS world, that's certainly coming true. And I think as you look at what's happening in the world with, a lot of turnover happening in our teams, having scaled programs to sort of back up the human interaction has never been more important, because You just need to have our companies need to have a relationship with our customers. A lot of times it's done through one-to-one interactions, but a lot of time it's done at scale too, through programs and marketing communication like efforts through our customers. So we focused a lot on that this year, and it's certainly starting to come true for us.
Awesome. Jeff, now being that you work so closely with Jay, what's your view on that? How are you seeing this all play out?
I mean, yeah, I think it's certainly true. I think that, the struggle that I think customer teams have right now is this idea of where marketing to current customers, where customer marketing lives, how you execute it, what's the staffing and resources that you put behind it. And I think that's the challenge that we've had to work through as we try and get our teams aligned. But I think we've identified it's an opportunity for us to go after. And now it just becomes a question of, okay, how do you align the right resources and how do you go execute against that? But I think that is if you're not having that conversation internally right now, then you're probably not doing something right. Like there should be a healthy conversation that's happening that to your marketing teams, to your customer success leaders that are saying, hey, who's talking to our current customers outside of me, right? If I'm having a one-to-one relationship with my customer, who else is talking to the customer from our business? Is it product? Is it marketing? Is it sales? We have account management, but there's got to be other conversations that are happening. And I think you need to be having that healthy conversation to say, okay, which of these conversations make sense to have? How do we, which one of these do we put into digital campaigns? How do we get outside of email? I think that's the big thing that we've talked about quite a bit this year as well, is that, hey, we're kind of breaking out of this silo of just strictly relying on email and 30% open rates and trying to figure out, okay, how do we actually talk to customers with value and do that in multiple channels and mediums. So I think it's coming true. I think it's just how do you staff and resource it, and then how do you build the plan to execute?
So you're talking about
Andrew.
a corporate-wide coordinated communication strategy with your customer base.
Yes, 100%.
So, better when you said it, Andrew.
What?
I said it sounded really nice when you said it that way.
Hey.
Yeah, I was
Nice and
going to
formal.
say, way to net him out.
So Jeff, I'll ask the big question: where should that land? Does that stay in traditional marketing? Should it land under the customer success leader? What's your thoughts? Where did that shake out over the year?
I'm gonna steal a line from Christy Falteruso here. It depends. That's her favorite response. So I'm gonna take that.
Feels like a cop out though when I hear someone else say it. So.
I think naturally, you start to understand. If you feel like the marketing team has a handle and they have ways that they've been interacting and engaging with customers, they have ways that they're coming into your team to gather insights and do that sort of mechanism, then I think it can live in marketing. If you don't have those things already in place, then I think you need to start it in the customer team and start saying, okay, how do we keep this as close to the customer as possible? We want insights from our customer teams to be in here. We want to make sure that we're talking in the customer's vernacular. We want to be doing those things. So let's keep it as close as we can. But I think you kind of have to, depend on what mechanisms you already have in place. And I think then it also becomes a question of where's the resources and staffing, right? You can't just always assume that it's going to be in your team, because you need to have reasons. You need to go, Dave, I'm sure as the leader of client success, right? People are coming to you left and right saying, hey, I need a resource for this, need a resource for that. And you're always weighing options. Okay, what's best? Where can this live? Can we offset somebody else's responsibilities of what we're doing? And so you're constantly trying to play that game. And so for us, I think where we netted out is we're kind of looking at, putting part of it in the customer org and then part of it in marketing. And we've got a really tight plan of how we're going to go do that and execute. But at least making sure that we have some of that responsibility so that we can be holding our teams accountable. And that it's not just hey, that happens over there outside of our team, right? Hey, we've actually got some control and responsibility here. We need to be coming to the table with ideas. And then how do we partner best with marketing on the things that it doesn't accomplish?
Awesome. Okay, maybe I'll jump. Todd, what were you thinking was going to happen last year? Did it come true? Was there any surprises over the last year?
Well, you always go into a new year hoping for the best, and you make the predictions that you hope will present the best possible future. And I'm looking at the ones from 2021, and we weren't exactly batting 1,000 when I'm doing the review now. But I think I think a lot of the core stuff, there's movement, but I don't know that we necessarily landed where we'd like. I think like a big one that I mean, I have mixed feelings on the progress that we've made on DE and I in customer success. I don't think we did enough to really facilitate the diversity and equity across the industry. I mean, certainly it's an ongoing, evolving thing, but I would like to see us make more steps towards hiring people of diverse backgrounds, more entry-level hires, seeing that people of color are more represented. We're doing some work on that, and we'll continue to push on it. We've been pushing on it for over 2 years now. I'd hoped that 2021 was the year where we made some breakthroughs. Didn't see what I wanted there. Did see a lot of shifting org structures, which is something that we did predict. I think we're seeing a lot more companies organizing their efforts under the CRO now. I made a offhand remark that's kind of kept coming back to me, which was that I thought that the CCO role was largely dead. And I know a lot of people will not love that. Some will embrace it, but I think seeing the move towards bringing sales and success closer together, crossing the chasm, if I'm going to do a Jeffrey Mooreism, bringing them together underneath one person who's responsible for all revenue, whether it be new or in base, and aligning around that to resolve the problems. We've seen some good inroads there, and I think that that's a really positive move forward. I think one or the other, and I'll just pick 3 because I think we had something like 20.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go through that because I clearly did not have as much coffee as Jeff did this morning. But the last one was people starting to realize, well, that's funny foreshadowing it, that customer success has kind of a growing people problem. It's hard to hire and find the right talent, although we're kind of in a place with the Great Resignation where there's a lot of folks that are choosing not to work where they worked previously. And so it's become, what they call a buyer's market, right? So they're choosing very carefully where they go to, but that's only one element of it. The other aspect is that people are realizing that in large part what we do is not something that you can solve, and Dave, put your earmuffs on. It's not a technology problem. There's a lot of people involved. That customer success it's more like a manufacturing process, and there's a lot of people on that assembly line. And so it's not about being able to just hit the easy button and buy some super secret piece of technology, whether it be a management platform or implementing intercom, any of these things. None of it makes the same kind of impact that investing in your people has, and also the realization that they're only as good as their people, because every single one of the interactions that you have with a customer is typically in some way, shape, or form related to a one-to-one personal interaction with another human being, and you're only as good as the last interaction.
Yeah.
So those were
those will helpful. We'll come back and dig in on a few of those. Let's Andrew, if you haven't had an opportunity, right?
No, I'm just enjoying the conversation. What have you got?
Andrew, is there one thing in 2021 that was insightful to you, that or a prediction you had that you thought would come through that didn't, or more than came true?
As Jay mentioned, I don't remember what I ate for breakfast, but looking back on some of the predictions, I saw a number of folks talk about a greater budget allocation for customer success education, which is something that we live every day, and we've definitely seen a serious investment that companies are making in educating their customer success teams. Because while we all talk about automation and trying to remove a bunch of the friction points and automating things that are repetitive, and as Todd mentioned, a manufacturing line type of systems thinking, there will always be a human element. And so that human element needs to be trained, needs to be built, needs to grow and evolve. And the more that human element evolves, the more impactful we can be with our customers. So that definitely was something that I saw from a number of different people that we personally experienced this last year.
Maybe can I dig in and either for Andrew or anybody on the education side, what do you think if you had one area of focus that you would say, I would love to spend a education budget on increasing X skills in the customer success space, what do you think, what is the skill area? Where's the skill gap, I guess is the right now? Where is it that we need most education and closing that gap?
Well,
I think it's some of the core soft skills, active listening, empathy, the things that give you an opportunity to make a connection with somebody else. Quite frankly, it's something that I think everybody can use, especially these days, in both their business and their personal lives.
Okay.
I would expand it with a few others, but chief among those is change management and realizing that
Tatiana
customer
said
success it's all about change. And the great CSMs realize that they can be a change agent both internally and with the customer and helping them to embrace that change. And then some of the other ones were either more hard skills, but it was around things like project management. A lot of CSMs, I think, started to realize that whether they wanted to be or not, they were project managers, and that they had to embrace the methodologies there. But I think Andrew hit the core of it. The crucial skills are traditionally called soft skills, but I think they're the core skills that we see. And the research just shows every year it's the same. It's a different set of them, but it's the same thing. They keep coming up.
Can I give you a perspective on this too? So I think there's like three different areas. So we hire people into customer success from a variety of backgrounds. Some of them come from software companies and they've done it before, so they know how to be a quote unquote CSM. They understand how to interface with a product team. They may understand how to interface with a support team. They know what it means to get a customer escalation, to get on the phone and be empathetic, listen. There are a lot of people coming into this industry that are coming. I've seen a lot of it just recently. Curious if you have as well, Todd and Andrew, coming from the education space themselves. So a lot of people coming out of being a teacher, they want to get into tech. And so what we need to do is we need to be able to teach them those skills. Like, how does a software company run? How can you be effective within that company, both with the customer and then also internally, as you have all these different moving pieces depending on the size of the company? So that's one area. The second area is the domain itself that you work in. There's so many verticalized software SaaS companies now that enablement on the domain is critical, because that's why a lot of companies will choose your business over another one, is that you are part of the market, you're part of the marketplace, you understand the specific problems you're trying to solve. The more time that goes by, the more SaaS companies there are that are vertically focused. They're solving a very specific industry problem. You have to know that. So you're either coming in from one of those two angles as a, maybe an individual contributor. Either you're coming in as a CSM, you need to know the domain, or you're coming in as a domain expert and you need to understand how to be a CSM within the environment. Then I think the third thing is for leaders. Like, we need in this industry, we need more people who can lead teams, who understand what it means to be a people leader and a manager. So that's everything from hiring and recruiting and the firing and all the things you have to do from a people motivational organizing work, all the different facets of that. So
Jay, do we have a shortage of leaders or surplus? this industry?
I think we have a shortage of leaders in every industry. So it's not limited to see customer success, but at the end of the day, I think, you know, if you look across, like every business is hungry for leaders to step in and not just make all the decisions, but actually get hands dirty and make decisions and drive outcomes and you know, make things happen for the business without, you know, a lot of fanfare. So I think every industry needs more leadership, and I think CS does. You know, ours is a relatively new profession, and so I think you got a lot of people who come into the industry and they grow with startups into leadership roles. They've not had the exposure to larger companies where maybe you have leadership development programs and you sort of got mentoring programs or learning it on the job. So that's part of the reason, I'm not trying to do a plug here, but that's part of the reason we started Gain, Grow, Retain, was to give people a resource that they could go to learn some of the things outside of what they see on a day-to-day basis. So I would say yes, but I don't think it's just a SaaS or customer success phenomenon that we don't have enough leaders.
Jay, we get a lot from education. Yes, agreed. We also get a lot from hospitality. We get a lot of people.
I can imagine. Yeah, they're looking to get out of that environment, maybe work days instead of nights. That makes sense.
But just,
you get a lot of folks. I mean, we saw during the pandemic when Disney did massive layoffs, we saw a lot of folks also coming out of the event industry. Yeah. You know, and it's an offshoot certainly of hospitality, but you know, there's some amazing people that were let go from Disney, and they didn't realize that they had customer success skills, and they have a ton of them. I mean, try and organize something in that theme park, and you've got change management, you've got project management, you've got relationships, you've got empathy, you've got dealing with difficult customers. I mean, you know, try having a conversation with somebody that just got pulled out of line at an amusement park. But yeah, definitely hospitality, education, and an equal amount of people, I think, coming out of retail.
I think to
I
go
have
back.
a question. Wait, hold on. Sorry, Jeff. I'm gonna jump in here quickly because I do have a question. I feel like I talked to a lot of folks who are trying to break into customer success and have been very vocal about the challenges they're having getting jobs. Todd, you just rattled off a whole bunch of transferable skills, which I agree with you, and I think they make a lot of sense to us. How do we help other leaders see that you can have somebody in your organization who doesn't have traditional customer success experience, but that those transferable skills are powerful enough to be successful in the role? Because I feel like that's the chatter that I catch wind in, especially on LinkedIn, is that folks who are trying to break in can't seem to penetrate these roles, and they're not getting the same opportunities. Yet I've got tons of companies every day who are telling me we can't hire fast enough, we can't find people. So how do we align these two things? Like, what would you guys recommend to both, I guess, leaders who are not jumping at the bait, like who can't get out of their own way and realize that these transferable skills are super powerful, and for folks who are trying to break in to navigate that?
Well, some of it's cliched, but I'm going to say it anyways. But I'm going to start with what I think the biggest issue is. We need to stop using lazy hiring practices. Just flat out. What does that mean? It means looking at the stack of resumes beyond the ones that land in the pile has CS experience. Full stop. You know, there's been a number of articles about companies that are using ATSs, and they're basically filtering out amazing talent simply because they're not looking beyond the keywords. And so, you know, I think it's a lot of you know, and maybe lazy is the wrong word, but it's targeted hiring practices, if you will. You need to look beyond what they did in their last role to see if they have customer success experience. You have to be willing to peel back the layers and say, like, what have they done that is customer success like? And hire for potential, not for position. But I think a lot of companies also need to look at embracing the fact that they can hire entry-level people. And that, yes, it's an investment, and yes, they're going to have to train them. But when you look at when most companies write up a job description, it ends up looking like a unicorn. And then they're complaining that it takes them 120 days to hire this perfect person. Well, you know, you can build that person if you get somebody that has the right attitude and the right, set of base skills and a willingness to learn. But you have to be willing to invest in the people and play the long game. And I think too many folks that I've talked to are just playing the short game. They're just going for, I want to find somebody and hire them immediately. And it's, and then they're complaining, well, why is it taking me 90 days to find somebody? Well, there's your answer. I mean, it's as simple as that. And yes, it's impacting a lot of the folks that are trying to break into customer success because they're not getting the opportunities for the initial interview to basically show and demonstrate how they could be a massive contributor to the team because they're not getting past the not a fit.
I 100% agree with Todd, which is a Christmas miracle in itself, but
like a miracle.
But there also is the responsibility on the job seekers side of the fence as well to create the narrative that you have been doing customer success. So you got to do some work on that side as well. And
that's true, but you got to be given the initial chance to actually tell the story.
I get that, but you have to have an intriguing lead-in to you telling that story as well.
But if your ATS is keyword searching those folks to death, they won't even make it into a pile that gets looked at by a human.
But that's part of the narrative, Todd. That part of the narrative is both what you say, but also how you write your resume, how you prepare yourself, how you the expectations that you set. So
well, and I think that we're putting a tremendous amount of work into the hands of the job seeker because they have to. And I mean, we spent years putting together materials and writing a book about this, and we talk about these exact things. And that's not a plug for us, but it's just like the reality is, if as a job seeker you don't understand the landscape that you're in, you're going to have a really rough time. If you haven't optimized your resume for getting past the keyword guardians, you're gonna suffer for that. And I mean, it just sucks that it's the reality, but that's that's the issue. So there's a whole new layer to the job seeking game where you have to learn the game and then you have to play it. And the result is a lot of really talented people that really need a job are really struggling. And I mean, I helped nearly 100 people last year through this, and it's freaking heartbreaking that I can't do more. But it's kind of crazy that a lot of people just don't understand it, and they don't understand why they're not getting through the initial screen. So yeah, I mean, I agree with Andrew too. Which is a
miracle. It's a Christmas miracle.
There we go. And I think I like what you said, Todd, that lazy hiring. I think it's easy, like we said, to look for the top level keywords, but understanding, my kind of feeling is it's in very rare circumstances do I need domain expertise per se. What I'm looking at is the soft skills, is the ability to have a conversation, to be able to, a productive conversation around business objectives, being able to have empathy, be able to have take ownership. And those skills can come from a lot of different places. And I love the challenge and the push that you've had to all of us to look beyond the surface and try to create opportunity. Enable and empower those who maybe aren't on the surface the ideal candidate.
There is no, well, I shouldn't say there is no. There are very few ideal candidates, and generally speaking, they're in a job already. So it's
generally, I think that again, if we scratch the surface and we dig deep, there is. I got off a call with a great leader in Denmark this morning, and I asked her background. It was teaching, which we've already talked about, which I think it's ironic. I didn't think about that until this call, like how there's the translatable skills there, but also and then agency work. So those are two different things. Some of my best CSMs that I hired back at Adobe in my days of Adobe, one was a digital merchandiser. Again, I wasn't looking for digital merchandising experience. The other one was a product manager or a project manager, and the other one was a sales rep who just loved to engage and build relationships, and they came from very different skill sets, but translated really well over time to be some of the best CSMs and managers or leaders that I had. All right, let's Christy, you have what's some other topics that we want to ask the group?
All right, so I'm gonna put this one over onto Jeff. And so Jeff, I know that we've seen and talked about this a lot, but like the rise of the ops role within customer success and like these new kind of built on roles to support it, whether it be training enablement, operations, and so on. What are your thoughts? What are your observations over what we saw this year? What do you think is going to happen as we move into 2022?
I think there's two things maybe that come to mind, which is the first is that our tech stack is becoming more complicated by the day. You think about the tools that are coming involved, what you have access to, what other departments are buying that now becomes applicable to customer success more and more. So no longer can you just kind of do this in your spare time, which I think a lot of leaders were doing, right? Hey, we didn't really have an ops role. I'm kind of leading the team, and then I'm figuring out which technology I need to get to help them be more effective and manage our customers. And so I think you're starting to move outside of that. Like you can't do that anymore. You need somebody who's focused on, okay, how are these things stacking up next to each other? What makes sense for us to add? How do we build a business case around it? How do we prove value of what we're purchasing to our internal teams, to our executives, to our leaders? So I think you need somebody's focus on it in a regular capacity. So that's kind of step number one. Number two is then you're starting to see that the ops role goes way beyond just technology and how it's really started to mature, like you see in sales or marketing organizations. So I think there's probably 4 areas that we have looked at and tried to focus on. One is enablement. How are we enabling all of our internal customer facing teams? 2 is around analytics and metrics. So how do we make sure that we can get our hands on the data? We don't need to rely on, that person's got a little bit of technical expertise to go, build the right database reports, get connection to environments where we can actually pull that data and use it in certain ways that we want to. The third is around technology. So somebody who's managing systems, looking at integration points, how does data move from one to another? And then the fourth is around customer programs. So this idea of scaled customer success, how are we building programs that are scalable, repeatable, somebody who's driving that train, who's making sure, everything's running on time and that we've got a cadence. So I think those are the 4 areas, and you're starting to see the maturity of that. Now the question I think starts to become for leaders is, in what order of operations do you do that? Which ones make sense for you as a business, right? I mean, it's not just hey, we need to go hire 4 and let them go, right? You got to do it in some sort of capacity. So I think but those are the 2 things that I think about in terms of CS ops and what we not only have, we tried to do at HigherLogic, but also what we've seen and done when we talk to other leaders.
I think we need a new name for ops though, because Jeff just kind of hit on all the things that ops is being looked at to do, but it's ops, the name doesn't really, you've got like an architect portion of it, you've got a program management portion of it, you have essentially what amounts to like a growth hacker type of element to it, with all the systems integration and trying to figure out how your digital experience mimics your human experience, so that you can scale.
So all the operations of a customer success organization.
Then you have a data element. No. And I can't give you the gesture that I'm thinking of, Andrew, but you're number one in my mind. But it's not just ops. I mean, you think about it, and I think the challenge that CS or what they just haven't done is they haven't look at other organizations that have grown and scaled. What are the roles that they have and why? And it's you look at a mature organization, and there's a training and enablement, there's an ops role. I mean, you could look no further than sales. Let's look at, what does a mature sales organization have? What are the roles there? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? And you can start to see, like, I feel like our industry tries to reinvent the wheel too much. We need to be looking at other industry organizations, other functional areas, and replicating the good and skipping the bad. As a new and growing organization within a company, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Look at what works and,
Yeah.
and
Like
replicate.
sales operations.
I think it just.
Yes, but Andrew, does sales operations do everything related to the architecture for the software solutions that they use?
Or they don't
I
do the
think-
customer journey either, part of the buying
Yeah.
process, right? I mean, I get what you're putting down, Todd.
I think if you limit it to CS Ops is managing our tech stack, then you're looking at it wrong. That should be a minor part of their solution.
Agreed.
Or excuse me, of their job role. If you've got somebody who has to do that full time to manage a tech stack, maybe you ought to reconsider your tech stack. But the strategic nature of somebody in whatever title it is, that's operations, that has an analytical part of it that drives and ensures the customer journey is there. All those things that Jeff so adequately articulated is a valuable road. They're there to help the operational excellence.
Exactly.
The excellence.
They're there to help the operations of customer success.
Yeah, they're there for execution and customer enablement. All of those things can fall under their umbrella, and I think that's key. I don't know that we need to come up with a bunch of new titles. I think it's just make sure that they're empowered to really help drive excellence in execution and empower the frontline team to do what they do best, which is engage with their customers.
Agreed.
We have maybe let's take a question. Christy, is it all right if I grab a question from the audience?
Go. Let's go.
Let's see. One question that's interesting that was one of the first ones from Andy. How do you, as we engage, as this panel engage globally, how do you see the differences between CS teams in Europe and US? Or is there any differences? Or maybe US and non-US, even expanding it? Or are there regional differences in customer success these days?
Well, since Andrew raised his hand.
Am I supposed to virtually raise my hand?
Andrew raised his hand
Andrew,
first,
you got it.
Todd.
Yeah.
Andrew, it is your turn to speak.
So I coach customer success folks from all over the world every week. And so I see a lot of this. And I think that there's similarities, but there's definitely differences. And those differences are they're doing business in a different country and you do business in a different way, right? The ultimate goal is to ensure that the customer's getting value from what they're buying from you. But the path to getting that value is going to be different. The delivery of the messaging is different. And I always caution folks that join us for coaching and training that, right out of the gate, I say, listen, this was built based off of our experience in primarily North America. But, you need to take what we're teaching and you need to kind of say, okay, how does that make sense within our world? Within the business world that I operate in. So that's how, that's the big difference that I've seen personally.
Okay. Any other insights you want to share before we jump to the next question?
Nothing to add to that. Very well said.
I want to ask Christy.
Surprisingly well said.
I want to ask Christy a question. Christy, what was the most encouraging thing you saw in 2021 in this community, in this space?
Most encouraging thing. I would say the number of job openings, right? I think at one point I had done a search and I think I saw it was like 300,000 like globally, obviously, CS roles that were open. And so to me, like that was like crazy. I remember when I first started my career in customer success, when I was trying to move to another company, it was hard. It was hard to find new opportunities, especially at different levels. And like to see that many jobs open, I thought that was super encouraging. So if I'm thinking about a stat this year, that was super promising for me as we see the future. Looks like people are making huge investments into customer success.
Okay, great. Let's take a question from the audience. And if anybody in the audience wants to ask a live question, raise your hand and I'll unmute you and allow you to ask it live. This is a question from Lori. Who should own executive sponsor program? And have you defined which customers are included in the program? So just executive sponsor programs. who should own the executive sponsor programs? And how do you figure out which customers are included on that? Maybe I'll ask Jay that question.
Yeah, I was going to hop in on this anyway and just say, yeah, this is a good example of where an ops and strategy team comes in for a CS organization. So the reality is an executive sponsor program really should be owned by the customer success team most of the time, but it's a cross-functional program. You have to have, executive team members involved. You're probably going to have a product conversation at some point as a part of that. So, it's very much a cross-functional thing for us. But I think that can be owned by the customer success team, and by extension, the CS ops team can help organize it and make sure it's running like a program.
Okay.
Jay, I will say one thing. In the past, I've seen one really well run at one of the companies I worked at when it was owned by the CEO with full knowledge of, Dave sits back. With full knowledge that, some of the customers that they have needed you to have the CTO as the executive sponsor for that company, just based on what they were trying to do. I think it really depends on the industry that you're in and the solution that you're selling. Obviously, if it's a highly technical solution, like if you're Cisco and you're selling firewalls and networking equipment, it's a different kind of a conversation. Phone systems, really technical, super complex stuff. You might have different executive sponsors, but I can't fault the logic that you laid out, where I think.
But we're talking about the owner of the program, though, right? Not the executive that needs.
And that's, in this case, the CEO owned it, and it was interesting. It did eventually get transitioned to the customer success folks, but it was started at the CEO level, and it was the E-staff that were the initial folks that were tapped as being the executives to work with them. And it just depends on where you start. If you're going to start grassroots and you want to start from within and then go outside to get executive sponsors in other functional areas, that's one way to go. In this case, it was, I want my top 10 customers to have the best representation we could possibly give them as a company. And so it came, from the top down in that case. So, just another viewpoint, not necessarily saying that you're wrong in any way, shape, or form.
I would just be surprised if the CEO was actually operationally running it. Of any company, right? I mean, no offense, Dave, but I want you out having conversations, not organizing some program internally, right? That should be an ops team. So maybe there was an ops team behind it, but I think we're saying the same thing roughly.
We are.
I think the other thing to keep in mind too is that typically your first inclination is just, I'm going to give it to top 20 customers, top 50 customers, right? And I think you also have to think about other factors that fall into that. Who's actually valuable in the market? Who's talking in the market? Who goes to industry events? Who is from other platforms that maybe we partner with or that are close in proximity to where our technology does. So I think whoever asked, I don't know who actually asked the question in the audience, but I think get beyond just, I'm just going to give it to the top ARR customers, right? You got to start asking some questions of your CS team and start asking the questions of, okay, there's valuable relationships just outside of how much somebody pays us. And we need to go understand what those are. And those people need to be folded into this program so that they feel heard, that they feel connected, that they understand where we're going as a business as well. So I think that's just the caveat that I throw out there is you doing it by ARR top, whoever's paying you is the easy way out if you're launching this.
That's a great call out. You need to have an objective of the program, right? If it's just, we need to coordinate our executives reaching out to have a conversation, right? Is that a program, or that just feels like to me like something tactically you're doing on a regular basis? So Jeff, I think that you're right? But I think the objective of why you're even going to orchestrate a program like that will drive how you go about it.
Yeah, but I think to Jeff's point, a lot of people do miss the advocacy factor there, and they do, the thinking usually is let's get it started, and the way that you start is the way that you continue on. So if you did it based on your top 10 customers for ARR, then it's going to be a while before you start thinking about other things. But I think that it's having those multiple dimensions in there is really critical.
I think whatever you do with an executive sponsor program, the idea should be to really think through and write down and communicate what the goals of that program are. To your point, Todd, like, what do you actually want to get out of this? Because to your point,
that's
like,
my
we're
point,
using
right? Like, is what is the objective of the program? Like, what are we trying to
Yeah.
accomplish? Is should be driving all of those things. If you
Yeah.
have a real strategy behind it, it shouldn't just be your top customers, because if it's, we want to learn how organizations are using our product, or we want to build relationships, or whatever the case may be, that's all going to play into how you determine who are the folks that you're leaning into.
One prediction for 2022 is that companies start producing less swag with their own names on it and start producing swag that you would actually wear. Shout out to Dave Blake for his grit shirts, or things that don't just, plaster the Client Success brand on there. No, I mean, great brand, but I'm much more willing to wear a grit shirt than just a Client Success shirt. Just to be honest, so I think that's also back to your point, Todd, just to, for anybody that's out there listening, starting an executive sponsor program, starting an advocacy program, don't go get a bunch of pens with your logo on it and send it to people, because they're not going to use them. Just, give them something valuable and they're going to use it. And remember, it came from you.
I wear my grit shirt all the time, Dave. I
I
wear it.
know,
That's
I
what I'm
know.
saying.
I wear it all the time. I
know.
love the grit shirt.
Yeah,
the,
we got
old
more
gray, the gray
coming.
one I got many years ago.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a couple questions, and then we've got Sophie who's asking about the top things to keep in mind when growing a customer success team from the ground up. And I'd go around the group, and you can't give the same one. So give one thing that somebody should, a leader should think about and really nail as they build their customer success team from the ground up. Andrew, what's your top thing to consider?
Why'd you call on me first? That's not cool. I just gave you a call.
I'll go first. I'll go first.
Okay, Christy, you got it.
Okay. First thing, go talk to your customers. Go listen, go interview your customers.
Awesome.
Like, don't do anything before knowing your customers first. If you're not having conversations, if you don't know what they need, when they need it, how they need it, anything you do is going to be wrong. So start with going to know who your customers are and what they need from you.
Amen.
Everybody raise your hand
Awesome.
if Christy stole your first anscer.
Awesome.
Listen, you
Christy.
could
She
have
did,
said, I'll go first, but nobody did. So I
Andrew,
won.
don't lie. You were still
There you go.
I'll throw one out there too. I mean, I think if I'm looking at starting this from scratch, also, I'm thinking much more about how to start with digital first, like digital touch points, and then how do I layer some of the human aspects on top. So I would think of, how do you start knowing what some of those key moments are now and building a technology stack that can suit those. Obviously you won't have, a free budget to go buy everything that you want, but can you start stacking certain pieces on top of each other so that when you do get down the road to scaling and growing, you've already kind of built the base in place. I think sometimes people miss that step. So I would think about, how does technology fit into your strategy from the beginning?
Okay. Andrew.
I think you need to start thinking right out of the gate of process, of methodology. It's going to evolve, right? But I think you need to sit down after talking to your customers. Christy, great call out there. After talking to your customers, I think you need to think about, okay, what is the journey? What is the process? And it doesn't need to be some, when I say methodology, people think reams and reams of paper. It can just be a freaking punch list. Okay, we're going to do this and do this and then do this and then do this. But just sit down and the best way to do that is to put it into some sort of shared document, like a Google Sheets, and make it a collaboration point for your entire team. And as you begin to figure out what the motions are and evolve those things, you've got that one place where you're working together. Customer success is a team sport, very much so, and that's a great way to begin to build the muscle memory that's required for us to do this effectively.
All right, Jay.
Sort of dovetails into another question here too, so maybe I'll preview that answer. But I think before you go, again, after you talk to your customers and you understand what the needs are, make sure they're well supported first, and you have a support function that works, because the most common thing that I see is that customer success teams are basically a customer success team that really is a support organization, which most software products need a support organization. But it's hard to get really strategic with your customers unless you have a way to handle their needs reactively, because they're always going to have those needs. So I would say, make sure that's a solid foundation first, or at least in parallel to what you're doing around building customer success team.
Jay, can I ask you a question? Would you hire your first hire? Would you hire a support person or a CSM first? You get one.
Well, I mean, your first hire, I mean, you're in a really small company at that point, and it's a valid question. I would hire a utility player, but make sure that you have a support motion that, I mean, that's going to be what they get pulled into most of the time anyway, right? So somebody has to be good at that. The reality is you're going to be doing it all if you're the only one.
It's the hero role.
Christy, I'll answer. I'd hire a CSM, to be honest with you.
Yeah, good call, Dave.
I think the empathy that's from anybody being on the front lines, speak with customers every day, regardless if it's tactical. I wouldn't say that long term. I don't want the CSMs to have support coming their way, but I think that CSM utility player who can get that empathy, that understanding, knowledge will be very, very helpful. Okay, wait. I know we're supposed to go there. Todd, real quick. Very quick answer, because
thought I was going to get out of there.
Anastasia wants to ask a question live, so I want to have a live question.
So mine would actually play somewhat off of Christie's and off of Andrew's, but I think one of the things, if I was starting from the ground up, I would speak to my customers a lot, but one of the things that I would focus on is really cataloging what the desired outcomes are for all the customers that I spoke to. What does success with my product look like in all of its many faceted forms, so that I could catalog it and then use that as, just like when you're starting a new organization, you always should have a purpose for the organization, understanding why do you exist? What's the reason? Be very clear on that. But also, why do we exist for the customers? What are we delivering? What does success look like? Because then you can work backwards, to Andrew's point, on how do we get there. And you can know what customers are most likely to want to accomplish. You can use that as a litmus test against how you're marketing and you're selling the product. So you can sidestep a lot of the most common, you sold me a crap deal, I can't make them successful, all those things that play into it. If you know what success looks like, it's the best place to start building an organization on a solid foundation.
Awesome, Todd. And wouldn't it be awesome if there was a solution to capture those goals? That's a shameless plug. But anyway, we got Anastasia. I hope I'm saying your name correctly, but we're grateful that you were brave enough to raise your hand and speak live.
Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you for doing this webinar. I know most of you folks on this line, and I actually don't have a question, but I want to give a shout out to this community as a huge thank you. Because from the moment I met Christy back in March of last year, she kind of helped guide me through this whole transition of a career to customer success, and I could not be happier. Jeff and Jay, fantastic job on the Gain, Grow, Retain. It's been a wonderful community. And Andrew and Todd, fantastic job on the SuccessHacker education as well as leadership nominations. I think it's important to give back to the groups that really support you throughout this, whether you follow them on LinkedIn and whether you spend time with them or get to know them more personally. This CS community is just fantastic and a wonderful resource for everything under the sun. So thank you, everybody. You're doing a fantastic work, and I think everybody on the call will agree with me that it's really, really appreciated. So I hope you have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
You too.
Good to see you again.
I think it's well said. I think that all of us, we just love this community. We do what we do because of the great people in the community. So we're grateful that all of you would join us today. We've only got a few minutes, maybe a quick look forward to 2022. If you go around the horn, what does everybody think that's going to be exciting or something interesting in 2022? I'll start, maybe. Since you're also shy, which you're just basking in the glow of the love that was just given to you, and I get that. That's good. I think a highlight in 2021 was the promotion for Yamini Rangan. I'm sorry.
You're gonna get it wrong every time, David.
I'm so sorry. I feel bad, but. Yamini is the CEO of HubSpot. I think that's huge on so many fronts. And as a global customer success community, I think that's really exciting. I think that we're going to see more of that in the coming years. I think there'll be more leaders, executive leaders that will come from the customer success space, including more CEOs over the coming year. So I'm excited to see that in not only in 2022, but beyond. That's mine.
I was fortunate enough to meet her a couple weeks ago at a
Awesome.
Golden State Warriors game and had a chat with her, and she's a delightful person.
Yeah.
And we're actually planning to do a podcast recording sometime early in the year to talk just about that very thing. I think we're going to see a lot more data-driven decision making around customer success, and part and parcel of that is more automation, more technology being introduced, not to replace customer success managers, but to give them the time for them to be truly strategic and focus on really making a difference with their customers. It is this notion of low touch, tech touch. It's not an either or, right? It's a supplement to help us do what we do that much better. So that's my prediction.
Okay, who's next?
I'll go real quick. I think we're going to continue to see software companies and technology firms like ours continue to leverage the power of community and how they market to their ecosystem, how they partner, and how they engage their customers. So it's just been a trend that I think has been one that we've seen really accelerate during the whole pandemic period. And I think it's been sort of eye-opening for a lot of businesses to see how that can work.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jay.
I'll say mine is more teams are going to be more customer teams, whether you call it CS strategy ops, are going to be focused on building a repeatable renewals forecast and how that can really drive a lot of decisions for your business in the future. That line of sight is going to be really impactful. So I think more companies are going to be focused on how to drive a much tighter renewal forecast that allows for better decision making.
Great. Todd.
It's me. I think there's a lot of potential things that we could see, but I think one of the things we're going to see that is going to, it's started, but it's going to continue to grow as we continue to move through whatever we're calling what we're in now. I think we're still in the pandemic, but what does it look like after that? But one of the things, the realization, we saw it at the outset of the pandemic, we saw some weirdness where people were cutting their entire CS team. And, I know I had conversations with Dave where we were scratching our heads and saying, what are they doing? I think that thinking evolved towards, oh my God, we're not getting new customers. We need to retain our current customers. And I think that really sparked a situation where CS became way more valuable because people started to understand that their existing revenue was potentially imperiled and they needed to retain that because they weren't bringing in a lot of new revenue. So I think in 2022, we're going to continue to see that trend go forward and expand. And a lot of the things that we've talked about where, it's going to be, more focus on CS in the overall business strategy. So how do we grow around a core of customer success? Things of that nature will continue to be in the for 2022.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. We're grateful to everybody who was here, all of our guests, Andrew, Todd, Jay, Jeff, on behalf of Christy and I, thank you for joining us. One last thing that we just wanted to share to the audience, if you enjoyed it, come see us at the CS100 Summit in February, where SuccessHacker is a platinum sponsor and HigherLogic is a gold sponsor. We're going to all be there. We'll be streaming live this group throughout the summit. And it's the best summit out there for customer success leaders at the most amazing resort in the world at Sundance Resort. So we hope you can join us there. But thank you for joining us today. Have a great holiday, and thanks for the great people you are and the great community we're a part of. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, happy holidays, y'all.